Vamos ter agora o prazer de receber em palco Paola Olivares, Research Director, e Asia Jane Leigh, Research Analyst do International Observatory on eInvoicing, Politecnico de Milano, que irão partilhar connosco o caso de uso de Itália em matéria de faturação eletrónica e a próxima fase do ViDA, ou seja, o IVA na era digital, na perspectiva do trabalho de pesquisa desenvolvido por este observatório. Welcome.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today, presenting some results of our International Observatory on Electronic Invoicing. So together with my colleague Asia, we will go through these two main topics. From one side, the Italian case as the first case in Europe for a mandate in the B2B field, and then an update on what is going on at the European level. Before start, just a few words on what the observatory are and how we work. So Digital Innovation Observatories are a research group founded in 1999 within the Politecnico di Milano, in particular in the Department of Management Engineering, that is part of the School of Management. And the aim of our observatories are to conduct applied research on the field, on the topic of digitalization and also sustainability. We have now more than 45 observatories that can be divided in four main categories. So the technology innovation, the industry innovation, process innovation, and the models of innovation. In the process innovation category, there is the Digital B2B Observatory, that is the observatory that follow all the implementation of the electronic invoicing in Italy. And starting from this point, we launched an international observatory on electronic invoicing two years ago. The aim of this observatory is to be an independent, a qualified, a third party for the monitoring and of the evolution of the electronic invoicing at the European panorama. To do so, we rely on three main activities. So the research that is applied and is conducted with companies, the community with the organization of some events in which we discuss on those topics, and the communication part to spread the knowledge. Our community is now composed by, from one side, apart from the research team, the supporters that are companies that offers solutions and solutions for this market. From the other side, we have some collaborators such as GINA, OpenPeople, the Exchange Summit, but also some institutions, some international experts, and a network of university. We have also the European Commission in the observatory with the eInvoicing building block. But let's go in the topic of the first part of the presentation, so the Italian case. In this slide, you can see the introduction path that we follow in Italy. So the first legislation was from 2007. Then the obligation started in 2014 with the obligation for central public administrations, and then the year after for all the public administrations. We have to wait until 2019 to have the general obligation of electronic invoicing, and we have a trial of the system possible by 2017. On 1st July 2022, we extended the obligation also to the smallest companies, so the one that have a turnover that is less 65,000 euros, so the small SMEs. Naturally, we requested two derogations to the European Commission in order to do this kind of achievement. Why we have introduced an obligation of electronic invoicing? Basically, because of four main reasons. The first one is the VAT tax evasion. Then we have the need to simplify the procedures in the communication between the government and the companies, but also the necessity to foster the country attractivity and the company competitiveness. For what concerns the tax evasion, Italy was the champion in Europe by 2000, before the introduction of the obligation, because we have 40 billion of evasion that is equal to the 25% of the all European evasion. And this evasion could be divided into three main categories. I have no time to go in depth in this thinking, but our government identifies two main categories of evasion that can benefit from the introduction of an obligation of electronic invoicing, so the evasion without consent and the omitted payment. So, what are, in our opinion, the key success factor of this obligation in Italy? First of all, the gradual introduction. As I said you before, we started with a B2G obligation, then we go through all the companies, so that is naturally a key success factor. The second is the stakeholder involvement. So in Italy, we had an Italian forum on electronic invoicing that was led by the Italian fiscal agencies, and that involves all the stakeholders that have something to say about this topic. So the service providers, the institutions, the university, the associations. The third reason is related to the trial of the system. So, as I said before, by 2017, all companies have the chance to try the system, so to issue the invoices, to receive the responses, and to correct the errors. And then the communication that was made by our fiscal agency, but also from all the stakeholders, that was based on a communication of benefits and not just on the fulfillments, because as you know, the electronic invoicing could be also a big opportunity for the digitalization of companies. As you know, we have this kind of model, so we have a centralized exchange model that is not a clearance model, but is a model in which we have a central infrastructure that is called SDI. An invoice exists just after it has been validated by the SDI. We have a network of ICT companies that provide services, and naturally we have a standard format. We know that this kind of model has some pros and some cons. The main pro is that it is very effective in combating the tax evasion. The cons is related to a limited interoperability. But let's go to see the results of our project. So, by the beginning of this obligation, every year are issued more or less more than 2 billion of electronic invoicing, with a rejection rate that is very low. It's around 1 and 2% of all the electronic invoicing that are transmitted by the SDI. Naturally, we achieved many benefits on the fiscal part, but also direct and indirect benefits. For what concerns the fiscal benefits, just in the first month of the obligation was blocked more or less 1 billion of VAT false credits. And we have a big benefits on this kind of area. For what concerns the direct benefits, we asked the companies that use this system to tell us which are the benefits they achieved. We have to divide the accounts payable and the accounts receivable. For what concerns the accounts payable, the 29% of the companies told us that they have many benefits in terms of cost and time savings. For what concerns the accounts receivable, the benefits are more huge, so more than a half of companies told us that the benefits, apart from cost and time savings, are also related to an increased quality of the data that are exchanged between companies, but also an optimization of processes. There are also many indirect benefits, so the 34% of companies experimented at least one indirect benefits in one of these processes. The principal one are the reconciliation process, but also the management process at all. To conclude this part, these are the VAT gaps that the European Commission reported every year. So we can see that Italy has more than 25 billion in 2020, and we have the largest decrease in the VAT gap, so 10 point, more or less 11% in just 1 year. So for this part, it's all. I leave the stage to my colleague to explain you the European situation. Thanks. Qual è quello? Quello in mezzo. Questo verde.
Thank you. Well, now that we have gone over what Italy has done, and it's the same thought that we have as an observatory, the next step was, so now that we have the obligation in Italy, what is Europe doing? So on the next part, we're going to focus on that. And I know that you have already heard a lot about that with the previous speakers, but I will try to find something new to keep you entertained while we wait for lunch. So what is happening in Europe? As we've seen in the last slide my colleague has showed, in Europe is happening that we have over 60,000 billion of VAT evasion each year, which is a very big number, but we can make it a bit smaller to understand it better, I think, which is 2,000 VAT evasion every second. If we count it like that, it's a little bit more impactful. And if we think of all the seconds we spent today here, that's a lot of money. So Europe asked, what should we do about it? Of course, this is one of the many reasons. And Paola told you about the reasons why Italy has started this already in 2019. But VAT evasion is one of the biggest ones. So what is happening in Europe and how Europe is moving? As we've seen today, Europe is moving, let's say, on two different paths, which are parallel, but going even at different paces. Because on one side, we got nations moving. So we have singular governments who are implementing B2B, B2G invoicing within the country. And on the other side, we got the European Commission with ViDA, who is trying to implement something at a more international European level. Of course, speaking of ViDA, the three main pillars are the one we already talked before, and I think that we already had a lot of speakers who helped us see this point, so I will not go more in detail of them, so I will not keep too much of you from lunch. But rather than going on what ViDA is, which I think at this point you're all become expert on that, and on the timeline, which we have seen already a couple of times, and a timeline, as we know, that could change. I will go in more detail on the various steps that ViDA is going through right now. Because as you know, this is a proposal. It has not already passed. It's going through different kind of approvals. We got in March the European Data Protection Supervisor opinion on it. Then we got European Economic and Social Committee. Now it's time for the European Parliament, which as you may know, it's the more difficult part. But during these stages, we got an important thing, which are the amendments from the ECON, the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs. These amendments have been around 2,000 amendments, 2,051, but by the type of amendments we have seen moved to ViDA, we can start to understand where ViDA is going. Because if we go in detail of these amendments, the ECON has proposed to ViDA, they all go in a very specific directions, because of course there are very different kind of amendments. There are amendments focused on helping small and medium enterprise. We've got amendments focused on delaying, as we have seen, the time of implementation of ViDA, but a lot of them also go in the direction of protecting national system, because a lot of amendments focused on there are already invoicing system implemented in countries, like we have seen, for example, in Italy, but as we will see, and as you know, many other countries are moving step in this direction. So what ViDA is also trying to do is to say, we need a way for these all different models, system, to interact and to harmonize, but we also must protect the work that has already been done at the national level, which of course, from both the side of providers and offer is very important, since, for example, in Italy, all companies are already working with our centralized exchange system, and it will be very hard to change it all again. But we can find instead ways to make it harmonize with the other system in a ways in which we keep instead the national system inside. So if on one side we got ViDA going on, and as Carmen was saying, we will wait for the 14th of May to understand if something is going to change or if we're going to take another step forward. On the other side, we got the national side, or as each country is moving. As you can see here, there are just 2 countries which have both B2G and B2B obligation in place. One of them, of course, is Italy. Then we got 16 countries who have already implemented B2G obligation, and then we got other countries. But this was just, I think, the situation in January. It could have already been changed because, as it was told before, things are moving very fast. But we have to think that for each of this country, is not just at what obligations are in place and what not, but because each of them has different models, different formats. Some of them are using national standard, some of them are using European standard, some of them are using both. So you can imagine how complicated it could be to harmonize all of them and to make them interact. And of course, here we are talking of things already in place, so countries who already have the obligation or don't. But as you know, a lot of more obligation is coming, and and this is just Europe and not all of it. These are just the main coming up, and of course, as you will see, many of these dates have already changed. If not, they are going probably to change, because Poland was just an example of how things could get delayed. So we're going to have Romania, who is right now implementing its B2B obligation. We got Spain, who have already laws, but is still trying to implement them. We've got Germany, we've got Greece, Belgium, Poland, who is delaying. France has already started with pilot projects, but it still has to implement. So we have a lot moving on, and you have to think that each of them, of course, maybe some of them are having the same model, like Poland. We have been talking a lot with our Polish colleagues, because they are a lot interested in how Italy has moved, because they are also implementing a centralized model. But when you go maybe in the code, in the syntax, in the synthesis of the format, it's different. So each of them is moving in their own pace, and then everything gets more complicated because you have to put the rest of the word in this, because of course that was just Europe. As it was mentioned before, US is moving with DBNA. So there is an implementation going on, and it seems they are going towards something similar to the European model, but with some changes because, of course, they need different things. The Middle East is also moving. They're doing a gradual introduction in various countries. And, of course, each of them has their own specific. Asia is moving a lot, and especially the Southeast is working together with PEPO. They are implementing a system that is similar to the European one. As Carmen was saying, we're already trying to have some interaction with those. China, for example, is doing its own system, HIFA-PIAO, which it has already experimented on a regional level, and now it wants to extend it. So you can see that there are a lot of complication is about to come. So what could be the next challenge when talking about invoicing? First of all, we have to consider that invoicing is going to be a new norm, because as we've seen, all the world in one way or another, it's moving. So it's something that we have to consider is going to be in a few years. The new norm is something that both companies and institutions have to be prepared for. Then we got the diverse national landscapes, because as we have seen, everyone is moving on their own path, everyone is implementing different models. We see the centralized one for Italy, we got the clearance one, but we got the 4/5 corner model, and we got many other ones, and maybe even new ones that new nations will come up with when they will implement their system. So we have to think that every country is doing their own thing, but there must be a way for them to talk to each other. So this is why what surely we will need is collaboration. Well, events like this are already something. Then we got ViDA, who is trying to bring collaboration. We got PEPO, we got GINA, we got various entities, or the Interoperability Forum, for example, which already brings the word, which I would like to conclude my speech with. Because for sure, what we think is going to be the next big challenge with invoicing, once we will have all that obligation in place, and that was already mentioned today, for sure is going to be interoperability. And so how all these various systems, how these models can interact in the future with each other. And I think that will be a nice conclusion to let you go all to lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paola and Asia. Sem dúvida, uma partilha muito interessante.